Hello there everyone, welcome back. We have the season reset, or the ranked mode reset, and we have extended time for the championship there. So ultimately, what does that mean? It means we're going to have some more tournament matches to bring to you. Unfortunately, that also means that the last few matches meant nothing. They do not count, as I fight up against Ashardalon here for the rematch. And I'm feeling pretty comfortable with this, but the one thing I need to point out is apparently with the ranked mode reset, it also wiped out all of the multiplayer fleets there for persistent mode. That sucks for everyone, and it sucks for me in terms of this match anyways, because I had no opportunity to get a warm-up match in like I normally like to in preparation for these battles, these ranked mode plays. So you're going to see something a little bit different, I think. Maybe it's because of the fact I didn't get my warm-up in, or the fact this is a brand new season starting fresh where every match matters. So if you pay close attention to my mouse pointer throughout this first battle, it's going to be really damn twitchy. I'm not going to lie. I think I might as well point it out now before you realize it later that I am more nervous than I probably realized for this match, which is kind of weird, because I feel like I know how to deal with Ashardalon's fleet there. It may be a little bit precarious with the space station defense, mind you, because if he's ever successful at getting aggressive there, if there's one thing I miss with like the shield transfers as his Novacans are going, then I could probably easily lose. But otherwise, I feel really damn confident with this matchup. But it's not going to stop the twitchy mouse that you may see there. You may not even notice it there. I know I sure as hell noticed it as I plant my minefield to just prevent him from being able to hit from multiple sides, frankly. So maybe I should not be crisscrossing these mines as I am right now, because quite frankly, it seems like everyone's trying to avoid them completely there. So I'm hurting myself by not being able to cover as much ground. With this crisscrossy formation here, as apparently the minefield's not going to really do a whole lot for his match anyway, as he's deploying over to the right. If nothing else, I did barricade any flanking or flanks on the frontal pathway at least, if nothing else, so he's kind of has to commit to the right there. So, I respond in kind. I reposition myself there, get myself a good optimal firing angle there for torpedoes, and to receive his fleet when he gets on moving. I also move the one Overlord back when I get a chance, as he unfortunately does get the Novacan on the the Widowmaker. I'm not really surprised by this development here. I'm not surprised what he's feeling at all, quite frankly. It's just a matter of making sure those Novacans never hit the hull, because that is amazing value if he manages to get through, and I'm not fast enough on the shield transfers, because quite frankly, I shouldn't need the shield transfers at all on my ship there, especially since they're positioned in such a way they can easily dodge an energy disruptor if you were to plant one on top of one of my overlords or dictator there, as well as the battle station. So I'm not really at risk of my ships getting heavily damaged by a Novacan shot at least. So I'm good in that regard, as he's kind of playing the passive game, which isn't going to do him any favors. I hate to break it to him. I got a lot more fighters than he does, and while this one overlord is kind of a little bit forward, it's not going to get the defenses of the battle station as much as the other two. It's, as I said, I'm turning around while I have the window too. That way, at least it can get protected. I have a nice tighter arc, as I said. All the ships can kind of defend one another there, especially as I try to go for bombing this Widowmaker here. And it does eventually silent run. I haven't been paying attention to the Widowmaker after I sent the bombers though, so I'm not really certain if it died or not, but it does silent run, as you clearly see there, without a doubt. So I try to reposition my Widowmaker on the left there. Careful, very careful to not get sniped by another Novacan ideally. So I will momentarily silent run with that Widowmaker once I'm confident I can get it out of reach of the Widowmaker on left, because it is just at the edge of the sensor range. So another moment or two, that Widowmaker will be hit, and he's going to have to rely on dumb luck if he wants to snipe that, as he prepares his attack run. Little good is going to do him with his attempts to snipe the Widowmaker, because I'm going to spawn him regardless. And unless he wants to invest in a solid running, well, I'm in a nice firing arc to just keep hammering him. It's going to do him no good here, as I try and get a good sense of the range before I really can commit with my bombers. And we did a little bit of damage, at least to the Mars there. Barely noticeable damage on the Retribution itself, but the Mars on the left actually took a significant amount of hits. Already, well, it's just Bernie's repairs now, looks like, or it's just been channeling. So either way, that's a nice easy target when I can get close to it. But I've seen his play before. Hell, I turn my ships for a firing arc and I try and quickly change my heading back for the Dictator because it doesn't really need to turn. Just keep the prow facing, soak whatever damage it can of any macro batteries that might be coming his way. Although it seems foolish at the time considering he's not even going to do that, as the shield disruptor goes off, the Nova cannons go out, and I do get the shield transfers in. I did do a preemptive tactical cogitator there, and because there's like a second delay after you turn it off to be able to turn it back on, I was a bit worried I would not be able to get the shield transfers in time, so it paid off nicely there. And I try once again to have my Cobras there, but amusingly, as you just seen, the Cobra just got shoved aside. It didn't even vaporize, it just got punched right into my battle station, so that's doing me no favors. And at this time I did get distracted by the Cobra too, and I didn't realize how tight of formation my ships were, so they end up ramming each other a little bit, which doesn't do me very well as far as quickly responding. But already Retribution's at half health. It's got its broadside on the ship though, but with my own brace for impact I should be okay. Bombers are back up, so that's going to do a world hurt even at point blank range. He's still going to have to contend with those bombers as already. Let's see, I don't think I'm quite in range of arm piercing rounds for Overlord, but it's taking hits. It's taking lots of hits. Heavily damaged. It just lost a third of its health immediately due to the bombers and successful macro battery hits, so that was a damn barrage. Nova cannons miss horribly. Nothing to see here, folks. It's just going to be another stomp as he kamikazes his Marses onto the battle station. Kamikaze's there, and I don't believe he has any sort of energy ram, so interestingly enough, he also has Imperial Navy favors on both his Marses, so for infesting 1600 renown, that is quite a bit of a waste. I would argue anyway. That was a lot of renown he just burnt, on top of whatever extra renown he invested in upgrades for the Retribution and those two Marses, which, if he's using them mainly for Nova cannons, I don't think he invested very many upgrades on the Marses anyway. But still, 1600 renown, that does well for me for the next match, because I'm just going to point out now, I did check the upgrades on his Dictators, and he does field Dictators for the next match. One of his Dictators didn't even have upgrades, so he did sacrifice something, because he didn't even have the faster ordnance reload for his Dictator, at least one of them. The other two had their upgrades though, and I have no idea about his Dauntless otherwise. I haven't paid attention to them. It was mainly the Dictators because really, they're going to be the big threat, since you already seen, or I already recorded and shown, my one match with Ashardalon anyway, and his fleet composition has not changed, aside from maybe the Imperial Navy favors. I will have to double check that other match to see if he did add those favors or not in between then and now. But it's as it's expected. Battle Station did take a notable amount of damage there a little bit, mainly from the ramming I would believe when the brace for impact was down, but if I had not rammed myself and slowed myself down to respond to the Retribution, that would have gone even more better for me. Clean sweep, nothing was heavily damaged. In fact, they were completely ignored entirely. So I'm going to try a little bit of experimentation here. My main focus I'm going to try and do with my Overlords and my Retribution is to try and take down one Dictator. I'm going to tell you now, it's going to be a slow match, and it's probably not going to work as well as I like. But it's going to be a slow match because what I'm trying to do is, since he's going to keep his prow facing to me all the time, I'm going to try and play it safe and just lance his one Dictator to death, if possible. It's going to be a slow, methodical type of approach, but that's what the idea I'm going with, because if I could just take down one Dictator, even heavily damage it, that is probably a guaranteed win for me, I would argue. because I already have a good idea how to deal with his torpedoes and bombers. I've had experience fighting the orcs there with their torpedo salvos, so I am really damn confident in this. I'm still feeling the nerves for whatever reason though, but mostly it has subsided after that first victory at least, so thankfully it did not screw me over that much. Thankfully. As we charge on in, I already told you my composition. The main concern, if things are to go wrong, is to keep my overlords alive, because I'm going to be using them for the final fight, should this somehow go to game 3. It is going to be slow, it's not going to be exciting. So, because really, what happens here is I try to forego using my lances altogether, which is, or not lances, but my macro batteries altogether, which is probably the critical mistake I'm going to be making here, is that I don't get the optimal firepower, because I don't think the macro batteries are going to justify the damage in exchange for exposing my sides to his torpedo salvos, because he has been focus firing the torpedoes in the last match, and he's definitely going to be doing it here a little bit. But I'm going to try and boost and side strafe those a little bit there, just being careful of my combustion gauge, trying not to overdo it a little bit there. Ideally, just minimize the damage at all, if at all possible, at least to all my ships there, and if one ship gets hit, then I'm doing alright, because then I could just turn my prow to them, and I'm just taking one torpedo in the traditional sense, traditional result rather. I shouldn't expect any more than that so long as my prows are facing and he's not getting the crisscross formation he would like. So we push on forward. As I said, we're side strafing. He is going to reload though, which probably is going to make it a little more difficult to dodge the torpedoes, especially when he's already in the middle of the map. So we completely dodge that. His crisscrossing torpedo run makes it a lot more easier to dodge though, so it saves me a little bit of hassle, but he'll probably catch on quickly. He'll start firing a wider spread there. Oh no, I guess he didn't reload there. I figured he would have reloaded at this point, because I sure as hell didn't. So he would have had an opportunity to shoot me there as I was getting in position for another torpedo run. Kinda silly. Kinda silly, because I probably should be using the reload as well, quite frankly, here. Because I'm sure as hell not going to assault run, for that matter. And he's just continuing to crisscross the torpedoes. I take that back. I figured he would have learned after the first salvo, but I may have stopped a little bit prematurely there as the torpedoes are getting precariously close to my one overlord. Oh no, we're good. We're golden. It's not a torpedo I should concern myself with. Hell, you figured I would remember the details of the torpedoes a little bit more, because this is like recently after doing this match here with Ashardalon, so you think I would have a better idea of the results, but no matter, this dodging technique's working a little bit, and I have been hearing him repairing, so I have been doing damage. So far I'm in the winning position here. Winning position even. Even if he has my ships revealed, there's nothing he can do about it. Not until I can get in bomber range anyway, so that's going to be this thing I'm going to have to be careful of, because I'm not going to be able to hide from the bombers unless I commit to a solid run as I get within lance range. Which technically I can do as I try and position myself to maybe fire these torpedoes in this wreckage some. I do ram myself a tiny bit though. Formation is getting a little bit tight, which is kind of funny considering they're all going the same speed and have the same rotation, but this wreckage is actually slowing down my overlord, I think, because it didn't get clear as I would have hoped. So that's a weird glitch for you there. One that almost cost me, but I got a lucky point defense salvo off. Got a lucky point defense salvo off, and sadly, I'm looking at the health of his ships, and he didn't take much more damage after the first few salvos, unfortunately. But we're practically in lance range. I prioritize one of the dictators. And as I said, this is going to be slow and a little bit uneventful. As really, as I said, I'm just trying to experiment here, see what I can get away with. Is really all I'm trying to do here. As I get a damn bad positioning there for that one torpedo wave, which costs me a little bit of damage, but thankfully I haven't invested in repairs just yet, so I'm going to do that in a moment as I cleanse this fire and repair the retribution momentarily at some point soon. So like I said, I'm going to try and just lance them down. It's probably a dumb idea because, again, I have opportunities to just use my macro cannons for this. Especially if I'm more conscious about using my broadsides and holding fire as I'm turning. Because I do shoot down the bombers, the first wave, because with the aid of the Overlord. So 2 ships shooting down the space station's attacks is working out well for me. Especially since he's being silly and he has his bombers being staggered. So I'm getting the best value I possibly could out of these point defense with how he's doing this. It's a little bit silly as we broke down the shields, and as I said, I could probably, in fact I should have used my broadsides during this time. Although, again, I'm going to have to be mindful enough to hold my fire, so that way I can wait until I'm certain the macrobats would shoot at the cruiser I'm trying to shoot at, the Dictator. That would require a little bit more micromanagement, so I don't know if I'm ready to do that kind of micromanagement, but if I'm going to have better success taking out that Dictator, that's probably what I need to do. As again, the bombers go in. Staggered once again, I need to point out, so he's not nearly getting the values he could with these dang bombers. As they're getting shot down, they're getting avoided. And I get a nice easy time dodging torpedoes, although I get a little bit of an awkward situation. My retribution turned a little bit more than I would have liked, so at this point, I'm willing to say I'm doing more damage to myself than he is at this point, trying to figure this out. But it was a spectacular dodge even at that close range. So we're golden.
Cruising speed set.
We are doing golden here. The damage is not worthwhile with the lances, but dodging torpedoes are going well, and I do try to get the Widowmakers in to try and contribute with their point defense some, as he's continuing the focus fire on the retribution. So I just have an easy answer for this next salvo. I just jump away. It's still in range of the Dictator, but as you can see, the damage is not really worthwhile just yet. It's not really worthwhile, unfortunately, which is where the macro mechanics would probably have been really helpful here. I could commit fully with my fleet that way without getting super aggressive. If I'm really mindful of the range of the battle station, I could have just kept out of range of that this entire time and still hit them with the macro batteries, which would actually work amazingly for the shields for obvious reasons, because that has no armor resistance, so any macro cannon that hits that is going to hurt. It's going to get rid of those shields quickly, especially with the lack of the overcharge or the extra damage to the shields, so that's going to pay off nicely if I can do that. Again, with my choice of Dictator targets though, I am going to have to hold fire as I'm doing a high energy turn to make that practical. Otherwise, it's just going to either hit the Dauntless on the left there, or realistically, at this point, hit the Cobras that are right next to my Retribution. So it's going to require a lot of micromanagement if I'm going to go that route. So it's not perfect, but it's definitely the better choice. Something I need to be aware of. But really, this was just, if nothing else, to experiment how effective my lances can be with his brace for impacts, the repairs, and all that. And sadly, I did not even get close to half damage here. Still have a little bit of work to do, even with the R25 armor of the lance currently. As I decide to get ready to concede in a few moments here, I decide to warp my overlords out to get ready for the final match. Because I already told you how I'm really confident here. I may have just wasted a bunch of time, mind you, and I apologize for that, but I'm still trying to figure out what I can get away with. Overlords make their way out, and now we'll just suicide the Retribution. I do not need it. That was an abysmal failure though, but again, if I can add the macro cans at, especially when he's not braced for impact, or rather isn't using his brace for impact, that would go a lot better. A lot better. I could have possibly killed that thing straight up, so as I said, destroying or even heavily damaging one of these cruisers will be a big deal for the final match. Especially now, this time, I have myself some power rams of my own. So that the tides are equal. We both are on equal footing, rather. Although that's not really true because I got the better close range potential. If the last encounter was any indication, I feel like I'm in good shape. I feel like so long as I can be consistent with my space station assault defense, I feel like I got Ashardalon's number. I don't think there's much he can do with this current composition unless he gets really lucky with the bombers and torpedoes. As far as like the point defense is concerned, there's always that risk. But I'm going in here with my overlords and 2 tyrants. Last time when I fought Ashardalon, I chose the dictator just in case to help deal with his fighters and torpedoes. In this case, I'm going full on aggression. It's no more Mr. Nice Imperial Navy this time around. I'm just going to show him what the true might of the Imperium really is. It is not cowering behind your prow armor. I am looking forward to this. I am definitely looking forward to this, but there is a bit of a catch with the map layout. There's 2 asteroid belts that I'm going to have to move between, which basically gives me a very narrow area that I can move through. As you're going to see right there, I choose to move through the middle, but even if I were to go to the right or left, again, there's still a very narrow window where his torpedoes are coming right at me. So I probably should have done the smart thing and just gone either directly to the left or directly to the right, and just take one of the torpedo salvos as I fly straight through and minimize my damage that way. As it stands now, I choose to go straight to the middle and probably the worst positioning, but well, there's not really any good side really because I have very little room to maneuver with how wide his torpedo arc could be, so this doesn't bode well for me. But I'm content with this strategy. I know what exactly he's feeling. Hell, he's decided to neglect his Widowmaker altogether, which is fine by me there. Which is fine by me in that case, because I'm going to just reveal and boost away, but again, I don't actually realize the predicament I'm in right away, actually, with these asteroid belts. Because I probably should have kept going around this asteroid belt here to eventually get across and dodge the torpedoes, but no. I decided to go up against it there, which is probably... This is where I realized the mistake I've made. I have goofed up. Because now, look at how that spread. It almost completely covers the pathway I have to go through, so this does not bode well for me, but if he wants to hit me, he's going to have to spread out the torpedoes, so he's not going to get the focus fire like he did with the Retribution last time, as I'm getting some amazing torpedo shots here. I even blocked the one on the Overlord. So, we're looking pretty good for the first salvo. But as I said before, I'm going to have to kind of commit going through this torpedo wave and minimize damage to the best of my ability. So dodging is not really much of an option. Which is fine. I had good luck with these torpedoes before. I got good positioning there. 2 ships make it through unscathed. The left one takes a lot of hits though. 3 torpedoes with a hull breach, I believe, is what happened there. I think. So I get the repairs up for that, so considering the other 3 are in good shape, and they're pretty much going to also be the 3 cruisers that are probably going to get in close combat with the dictators first, I don't think that one that's crippled or damaged is going to be at risk. Not yet anyway. As I do manage to finally clear the asteroid belt, I dodge the torpedoes. Well, I was going to say dodge all but one, but then the second one had to hit just the very end of my engine, and it hurt. It really hurt. 9 points of damage there is not something you should scoff at. But this is an interesting little thing as he decides to separate his Dauntlesses to go after my Widowmaker. And because I revealed myself, interestingly enough, this actually bodes well for me. The fact that I revealed myself actually is useful because he thought I was going to go after the Dauntlesses there, but I completely juked him. If I was hidden, he would probably have not realized that and probably gone for a standard torpedo spread. And with the two cruisers also helping to shoot down those torpedoes, we are looking phenomenal. Also, I need to point out that Silent Running denied all his Dictator's bombers. We are in a far better position than the last time. Although I do accidentally Silent Run instead of the Brace for Impact here. But remember, we have the power rams there to equal up the field in terms of the ramming damage. And I'm also the better fleet for the close range engagements too, so I think Ashardalon's screwed. As already, the generator goes down, but I don't think the generators are too significant, but it helps really well for my macro batteries if I can get armor-piercing salvo in. As the clusterfuck begins, although really, I'm getting a little bit better focus fire here as two of my overlords, my tyrant overlord, are focusing down this one dictator down below, and the third one's about to join them in this mess. Only real downside I would criticize myself here is that most of my boosters are down. I expended them completely in that charge, so I have lost a lot of my mobility with that dodgy maneuver I've been doing, so I am a little bit susceptible to his torpedoes, but I think I'm okay, as made apparent with the health. Hell, he even is so kind to fire torpedoes at one of his own dictators. I guess he already conceded there, because that was not my torpedo as it may have looked. He shot himself and killed his own dictator. And I don't think I need to point out, but we had ourselves almost a perfect game. Almost a perfect game. The Widowmaker isn't even dead yet. His dauntlesses that chased after him decide to turn around when he realized my juke. It wasn't really an intentional dodge or fake out to dodge those torpedoes before engaging, but it damn well worked beautifully, I gotta say. It damn well worked beautifully. I do take a couple of torpedoes in, but he doesn't have any he doesn't have energy rams, power rams. I forget the exact name. I'm assuming it's power rams, but I feel like it should be a little more elaborate than that. But nonetheless, I do get mutinies, which is a little bit unfortunate, but nothing is heavily damaged. The Widowmaker survived. He explodes on me to nerve him, but I think it's safe to say that was a flawless match there, considering it was a cruiser clash. Maybe got a little bit lucky because I juked the torpedoes and completely denied his bombers with the solid run. Well, the solid run was intentional. It was dodging the torpedoes I got a little bit lucky on, just completely side strafing them, but denying the bombers was a big damn deal. Especially since they were all going after the same overlord or tyrant. The same cruiser anyway. So I don't need to tell you how effective, important that was to completely nullify one of his big burst damage abilities. Needless to say, that was quite the stomp there in first and third match. Abysmal failure for the second match, I won't lie. But I'm trying to find my limits there. And the results are looking good. I just gotta be more consistent.